Julian Thorne, a millionaire whose arrogance was as legendary as his fortune, held the wedding invitation like it was a venomous snake. It was from Victoria Sterling, his ex-fiancée, the woman who had shattered their engagement for a more suitable match, leaving him in the wreckage of their shared future. And now, this invitation. It wasn't an olive branch. It was a dagger meant to twist in the wound of his pride. "Is this some kind of sick joke?" he muttered, the thick cardstock crinkling in his grip before he tossed it onto the polished mahogany of his desk. His friend, Leo Vance, picked it up, a low whistle escaping his lips. "That's a low blow, man. Are you going?" A dry, mirthless laugh escaped Julian. "And show up alone? A testament to my failure? Not a chance." "Then take someone," Leo suggested, leaning against the desk. "Show her you moved on. Show her you won." The idea took root, but Julian knew that taking just anyone wouldn't suffice. He needed to make a statement, an earthquake that would rattle Victoria's perfectly constructed world. He needed a ghost from a past she thought she'd buried. Later that day, leaving his towering office building, the problem still consumed him. That's when he saw her, a young woman, sitting on the cold sidewalk across from a Michelin star restaurant. She was grimy, her clothes tattered, but her face held a classical beauty that grime couldn't fully obscure. Her tangled hair cascaded over her shoulders and her eyes. They weren't pleading or broken. They were defiant. On a sudden, wild impulse, he strode towards her. He approached, hands buried in the pockets of his tailored suit, looking down at her. "Hey, you need money." The woman's gaze lifted, not with gratitude, but with a sharp, assessing quality, as if she were deciding if he was worth her time. A slow, knowing smirk touched her lips. "What's this? A social experiment? Depending on my answer, you either toss me a coin or walk away with your conscience clear." Julian's eyebrows shot up. No one spoke to him with such raw, unfiltered sarcasm. "Come with me to an event," he said, his voice clipped, "and I'll pay you enough to change your life." She let out a quiet, throaty chuckle, shaking her head. "Enough to change my life? Wow. Do you always use such dramatic lines, or just when you're playing the role of savior?" The scorn in her voice was a physical thing, and it unsettled him more than it should have. He maintained his composure. "You just need to dress up, smile, and be on my arm." She tilted her head, a flicker of genuine amusement in her eyes. "Oh, I see. You want a decorative doll for the evening. A prop." Julian's eyes narrowed. This woman was intentionally provoking him. "If you don't want the offer, I can find someone else." This time, she laughed out loud. "Is that a threat? Because honestly, I don't see a line of candidates waiting to be your pawn." She was turning his own power dynamic against him, and it was infuriating. She rose to her feet, dusting off her worn dress, and stepped closer, too close. The scent of the city streets clung to her, a stark contrast to his own world of cologne and leather. "I'll accept," she said, her tone suggesting she was the one doing him a favor, "but only because I'm curious." A dangerous energy crackled in the air between them. "Curious?" he asked, suspicious. "Curious about what?" Her smile was a razor's edge. Her eyes glowed with an unreadable light. "To see just how far a man like you is willing to go." Julian stood frozen for a moment. Who the hell was this woman? Seraphina settled into the plush leather of the luxury car, her gaze fixed on the blur of city lights. She wasn't awestruck, nervous, or impressed, just keenly observant. Julian, seated beside her, found himself waiting for a reaction that never came. No questions, no hesitation. Just a calm, unnerving acceptance. "You don't even want to know where we're going?" he asked, breaking the thick silence. She turned to him, that infuriating smirk playing on her lips. "Someplace expensive, I imagine." Julian raised an eyebrow. "And you're not curious?" "Should I be?" she countered, tilting her head. "You found me on the street and offered me a small fortune to be your date. The situation is already bizarre. I highly doubt you're planning to sell me into human trafficking." He couldn't help but laugh. "No, nothing that dramatic. Just a social event." "A wedding, right?" He stared at her. "How did you know?" "You have that look," she said, her eyes scanning his face. "A man out for revenge." Julian's jaw clenched. Seraphina read him like an open book, and he hated it. And if I am? She shrugged, a gesture of elegant indifference. Does it matter to me? As long as I get paid. He smiled then. He admired her audacity, but he was more determined than ever to understand who she truly was. Minutes later, the car purred to a stop before an opulent building, a world-renowned beauty salon. Seraphina followed him inside without a word. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfumes and hair products. A team of stylists swarmed them the moment they entered. I want a complete transformation, Julian commanded. Hair, makeup, clothes, everything. The staff nodded eagerly, and within seconds, Seraphina was seated in a styling chair. If you want to change your mind, now's the time, she said, as a hairdresser began to work through the knots in her hair. Change my mind? About you? I guess I was expecting someone more impressionable. Julian crossed his arms. Are you not impressed by any of this? Not by this, she said, closing her eyes as her hair was washed. I've been in this world before. He frowned, but before he could press her, a stylist ushered him to the waiting area. Mr. Thorne, if you'll let us work our magic. He cast one last, intrigued glance at Seraphina and left. Hours crawled by. When a stylist finally called his name, Julian walked back into the main salon, and his breath caught in his throat. The woman standing before him was a stranger. Her once tangled hair now fell in sleek, obsidian waves. Her face, once marked by exhaustion, was now a flawless canvas. Her eyes accentuated by smoky, sophisticated makeup. A deep sapphire gown clung to her figure, and stiletto heels gave her an added air of command. But the most shocking part was her expression. She wasn't awed by her own reflection. She simply observed in the mirror, as if greeting an old friend. What is it? She asked, turning to meet his stunned gaze. You don't look surprised. Seraphina smiled, a mysterious glint in her eyes. Because I'm not. Who are you? He pressed, his voice low. She took the clutch from the stylist and glided toward him. Someone who knows how to seize an opportunity. As the car moved toward the wedding venue, Julian felt a surge of anticipation. Beside him, Seraphina's calm was almost irritating. He had expected some sign of nerves, but her composure was absolute. You're very quiet, he commented. I'm enjoying the silence, she replied with a faint smile. He frowned. Most people in your situation will be dazzled by all of this. She laughed softly. Perhaps I'm not like most people. The car finally stopped in front of the luxurious banquet hall. Limousines deposited guests dripping in diamonds and designer gowns. Photographers' flashes lit up the night. Julian exited first, then extended a hand to Seraphina. When she emerged, the effect was immediate and undeniable. A wave of whispers followed her. All eyes turned, trying to place the stunning mystery woman on Julian Thorne's arm. Yet, Seraphina didn't flinch. She lifted her chin, her smile discreet, as if she was born for the spotlight. Follow my lead, Julian whispered as they walked the red carpet. Be polite, smile, and don't draw unnecessary attention. She raised an eyebrow. Did you bring me here to make your ex jealous or to be a wallflower? He pressed his lips together, and she smirked. That's what I thought. They entered the grand hall, a cavern of crystal chandeliers and golden light. It didn't take long to spot Victoria, looking radiant in her designer wedding gown, her smile perfectly crafted. Beside her stood Alistair Finch, her new fiancé, wealthy, traditional, and utterly predictable. Victoria's eyes found Julian's, and a flicker of surprise crossed her face. Then her gaze landed on Seraphina, and it froze. With a calculated smile, Julian led Seraphina directly toward them. Victoria, he greeted, his tone a perfect blend of politeness and ice. Julian, she blinked, forcing a smile. What a surprise. I didn't expect you to come. Of course I came, he said, gesturing to Seraphina. And I brought company. Victoria's eyes raked over Seraphina. We haven't been introduced. You are. Before Julian could speak, Seraphina extended a graceful hand. Seraphina, a pleasure to meet you. Her voice was firm, elegant, her posture flawless. Victoria hesitated, clearly thrown off balance, before shaking her hand. "You look familiar," she remarked. Seraphina smiled. "Do I?" Victoria's own smile was strained. She was unsettled, exactly as he'd wanted. "Shall we toast?" Alistair interjected, trying to break the tension. As they raised their glasses, Seraphina said something that made the air crackle. "I hope you'll be very happy. Marriage is a serious commitment. I was once engaged myself." Julian froze. "Really?" Victoria asked, forcing a casual tone. Seraphina nodded, taking a sip of champagne. "But it didn't work out. My fiancé decided I wasn't the right choice for his family." The message was a dagger, and Victoria caught it. Her eyes narrowed. "That's an interesting coincidence." "I think so, too," Seraphina replied with a serene smile. An uncomfortable silence descended. Finally, Seraphina touched Julian's arm. "Would you like to dance?" He blinked, surprised. "Dance? Yes. Or would you rather stay here and watch your ex-fiancée try to figure out where she knows me from?" A genuine chuckle escaped him. He loved the game she was playing. "Let's dance." As they glided across the floor, he looked into her eyes. "You did that on purpose." "Didn't I tell you I've been in this world before?" she murmured, her smile enigmatic. Julian felt a confusing mix of irritation and profound admiration. Seraphina was no mere homeless woman. She was a master puppeteer, and he was beginning to realize he wasn't the one pulling the strings. "You keep surprising me," Julian murmured as they moved across the dance floor. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" Seraphina arched an eyebrow. "I haven't decided yet." "I think you realize I'm not exactly what I seem," she said, her eyes sparkling. "I've realized you know far more about this world than you should." "Let's just say I've been surrounded by people like this before," she replied evasively. Before he could press further, a group of businessmen, investors Julian knew well, approached them. "Thorne," one of them boomed, "you finally decided to show your face at a social event." Their attention quickly shifted to Seraphina. "And who is your lovely companion?" Before Julian could answer, Seraphina stepped forward. "Seraphina, a pleasure." She spoke with such innate confidence that no one questioned her. "Seraphina," one of them repeated, studying her. "Your face looks familiar." "Perhaps we've met at an event before," she said, keeping the mystery alive. "And what do you do, Seraphina?" another asked. She gracefully took a flute of champagne from a passing waiter. "I enjoy observing the financial market. The surge in tech investments has been quite fascinating, especially the new AI-focused startups." A stunned silence fell over the group. None had expected such an articulate, informed response. "That's a rather specific topic," one man commented. "I just follow the trends," she said with a dismissive sip. "After all, everything comes down to who gets the inside information first, doesn't it?" The men laughed, now completely captivated. Julian, however, felt a growing sense of frustration. She wasn't just fitting in, she was commanding the room. Before he could intervene, a formidable figure approached. Marcus Sterling, one of the country's most influential investors, and Victoria's uncle. "Seraphina, right?" Marcus said, his sharp eyes sizing her up. "You seem very comfortable here." "Maybe because I am," she returned with a polite smile. He laughed. "I like that. And what's your relationship with Thorne?" She shot Julian a playful look. "Just an interesting partnership." Julian felt his blood boil. He was losing control of the narrative he'd so carefully constructed. "Indeed," he interjected, taking her glass. "Now if you'll excuse us." He grasped her wrist, leading her to a secluded balcony. "What exactly are you doing?" he asked through clenched teeth. "Just having fun." "You're standing out too much." "Wasn't that the plan?" "To make your ex-fiancée jealous," she countered. "You play the game very well, Seraphina. And you don't like it when you can't control the board, do you?" He let out a short, frustrated laugh. "You're not just some simple beggar. And it took you this long to figure that out?" Before he could respond, Victoria appeared beside them. "I hope you're enjoying the party," she said, though her eyes were laser-focused on Seraphina. "Very much," Seraphina answered smoothly. "You know, Seraphina," Victoria mused, "I feel like we've met before." The high society world could be small, Seraphina replied with a shrug. And how do you know Julian? Victoria insisted. I think it's more fun if that remains a mystery, Seraphina smiled. Victoria let out a sharp laugh. Of course. Can we talk for a moment, Julian? He nodded, but cast one last look at Seraphina. She simply smiled, a silent promise that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. On a private, windswept balcony, Victoria dropped all pretense. Who is she, Julian? She demanded. Seraphina, my companion. Don't treat me like a fool. She doesn't fit your usual type. And what do you want to know, Victoria? He countered. Where did she come from? He hesitated for a fraction of a second, but it was enough. My God, Victoria whispered, the puzzle pieces clicking into place in her mind. You found her on the street, didn't you? You brought a beggar to my wedding to provoke me. I brought a confident, intelligent woman who fits in here perfectly, he retorted. A woman who knows too much for someone supposedly living on the street. She shot back. Be careful, Julian. That woman didn't just appear in your life by chance. She turned and swept back into the ballroom, leaving him alone with a sudden, chilling doubt. In the car, the silence was a heavy blanket. Julian drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. You want to ask me something, Seraphina stated. Not a question. I do, he admitted, his eyes fixed on the road. But I doubt you'll answer. Depends on the question. He made a sharp turn, pulling over in front of his hotel. He turned to face her, the dim light of the dashboard illuminating the tension in his face. Who are you, Seraphina? The woman you chose to make an impression on your ex-fiancée. No, his jaw tightened. You know too much. You act like someone who lived in this world before. When she remained silent, he continued, I had you investigated. She didn't look surprised. And what did you find? Nothing. You don't exist, Seraphina. No records, no recent history. It's as if you erased yourself. Maybe some things need to be erased, she said with a small, sad smile. I don't like mysteries. Then maybe I'm not the right person for you. She opened the car door and walked into the hotel without a backward glance, leaving him reeling. Inside her room, Seraphina leaned against the door, her heart pounding. Victoria was suspicious. Julian was investigating. She pulled a disposable phone from her bag and typed a short message. He started digging. The reply was instantaneous. Then it's time to decide your next move. She deleted the exchange. The secret she had guarded for so long was about to detonate. And soon, Julian would know the truth. The next morning, Julian called a number he hadn't used in years. I need you to look into someone for me, he said bluntly. Her name is Seraphina. No last name. I want to know everything. Where she came from, who she really is, and why she's a ghost. Give me 48 hours, the voice on the other end promised. 2 days later, the investigator called back. I found something. You were right. Seraphina isn't who she pretends to be. Go on, Julian said, gripping the phone. Her real name is Seraphina Rossi, daughter of Richard Rossi. Julian's blood ran cold. He knew that name. The construction tycoon. The very one. But here's the interesting part. Richard Rossi went bankrupt a few years ago after a massive embezzlement scandal. And guess who was a junior partner at his firm, deeply involved in transactions that ruined him? Julian's breath hitched. Victoria Sterling. Exactly, the investigator confirmed. It seems your mystery woman didn't show up by chance at all. He hung up the phone, staring out at the city. The game had just changed. This wasn't about his wounded pride anymore. This was about a calculated, long-simmering revenge. And he was standing right in the middle of it. That night, he drove to her hotel, his mind racing. He needed to hear from her. The door opened to reveal Seraphina, her expression weary. We need to talk, he said, storming in. Stop testing me and tell me the truth. Why did you accept my proposal? She looked away, a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes, before her gaze hardened. Because Victoria Sterling destroyed my family. The words hung in the air, confirming everything. Tell me, he commanded, his voice softer now. My father Richard Rossi owned one of the largest construction companies in the country, she began, her voice trembling slightly. He was an honorable man. He trusted the Sterlings. Victoria came into the business as a strategic partner, but she was a viper. She created fraudulent deals, embezzled funds, and framed him for it all. When the scandal broke, he was accused of corruption. He lost everything. Our name, our home, our dignity. Her voice broke. He passed away from a heart attack before he could even defend himself. Julian felt a pang of something he couldn't name. My mother got sick shortly after. I tried to fight, to prove his innocence, but Victoria had already buried the evidence and closed every door. In a matter of months, I had nothing left. You survived on the streets, he stated, the reality of it hitting him. Yes, and I learned never to trust anyone again. He reached out, lifting her chin. You don't have to do this alone. She pulled away. I don't need a savior, Julian. I know, he said, his voice raw, but that doesn't mean you have to carry it all by yourself. He let out a sigh. I don't know what I'm feeling anymore when I'm around you. You make me uneasy. I've never felt this way. She watched him, her own confusion mirroring his. This doesn't change anything. I know. And what about Victoria? The mention of her name brought him back to reality. If what you said is true, then I don't know who she really is. But I do, Seraphina said, her fists clenched. And I won't stop until I settle the score. He knew he couldn't stop her, so he made a decision. Then I'll be by your side. She gave him a small, bittersweet smile. Even knowing this could end very badly, he closed the distance between them. Even then, the next morning, the scandal broke. Victoria, having discovered Seraphina's true identity, had struck first. Headlines screamed from every major newspaper. Isabella Rossi, from luxury to the streets. The disgraced heiress who lost everything. The stories were brutal, painting Seraphina as a desperate opportunist trying to con her way back into high society. She's trying to destroy me all over again, Seraphina said, tossing a magazine onto Julian's desk. He clenched his fists. That's not going to happen. You always have that absurd confidence, she noted, a flicker of hope in her eyes. He gently held her chin. Because I never lose. Then let's make sure she loses this time, she said, her voice filled with renewed determination. It's time to bring Victoria Sterling down. A few nights later, an invitation arrived for Seraphina. Private dinner at the Sterling Club. Your presence is requested. It's obviously a trap, Julian stated, reading the note over her shoulder. I know. Then you're not going. She looked at him, her eyes blazing. Of course I am. This is my moment, Julian. I'm not running away. He took a deep breath. Then let's make sure Victoria is the only one who loses tonight. The Sterling mansion was a glittering fortress, filled with the city's elite. Seraphina walked in alone, a vision in a black gown that spoke of power and vengeance. Julian was already there, a shadow in the crowd. Watching, Victoria appeared, a venomous smile on her lips. Seraphina, glad you could make it. You didn't give me much choice, she replied coolly. I hope you've enjoyed the media attention, Victoria purred. They loved your little sob story. I've gotten used to being the center of attention. Something you've always craved, haven't you? Victoria's eyes flashed with anger. You've lost again, dear. You'll never be one of us. You're wrong, Seraphina smiled. Just then, Julian appeared at her side, his presence a silent threat. Dear Victoria, he said, handing her a thick manila envelope. It looks like you didn't read today's financial reports. Victoria opened it, her face draining of all color as she read. It was a complete dossier. Documents, recordings, signatures, irrefutable proof of her involvement in the scheme that had destroyed the Rossi family. This is fake, she whispered, her hands trembling. No, it's not, Seraphina said, her voice triumphant. And tomorrow morning, it will be on the front page of every paper. Victoria lost her composure completely. You can't do this to me. Just like you did to my family, Seraphina retorted. As Victoria looked around wildly, realizing all eyes were on her, the ballroom doors swung open. 2 police officers, and a prosecutor walked in. "Miss Victoria Sterling," one officer announced, "you are under arrest for financial fraud, embezzlement, and market manipulation." The room fell silent. "This is ridiculous," she shrieked. "I am Victoria Sterling." "And now you're also a criminal," Seraphina replied coldly. As they handcuffed her, Victoria screamed at Julian, "Say something." He looked at her with utter indifference. "Your only mistake was thinking you'd never get caught." As she was dragged away, she shot one last, hate-filled look at Seraphina. "This isn't over." "For you," Seraphina whispered back. "It is?" For the first time in years, she felt truly, completely free. In the weeks that followed, Victoria's empire crumbled. With the evidence made public, her allies abandoned her, and her financial world collapsed. Meanwhile, Seraphina began to rebuild. With Julian's backing, she launched Rossi Consulting, a strategic investment firm. He didn't want to give her charity. He wanted a partnership, a way to see her talent and vision flourish. She threw herself into the work, slowly reclaiming her place in the business world. Julian remained by her side, a constant, supportive presence. The lines between their partnership and their feelings for each other blurred until they were indistinguishable. One evening, at a major business gala, a charismatic French investor named Adrien Dubois approached Seraphina. He was charming and his attention was flattering, but as he led her to the dance floor, she felt a familiar, intense gaze on her from across the room. It was Julian, his eyes dark with jealousy he couldn't conceal. He crossed the room, his jaw tight. "Seraphina, may I speak with you?" The tension between the two men was palpable. Seraphina, annoyed by his possessiveness, pulled Julian into a hallway. "What was that?" she demanded. "I couldn't stand seeing that guy hitting on you. And that gives you the right to act like a possessive fool? I am not yours, Julian." She turned to leave, but he followed her to the parking lot. "Isabella, wait." The tension between them snapped, and he pulled her into a fierce, desperate kiss. It was filled with all the anger, frustration, and unspoken desire that had simmered between them for months. For a moment, she kissed him back, but then reality crashed down, and she pushed him away, speeding off into the night. The next day was unbearable. The unease grew until Seraphina couldn't stand it anymore. That evening, she drove to Julian's penthouse. Finding the door unlocked, she stepped inside to find him collapsed on the sofa, pale and shivering with a high fever. "Oh my God, Julian," she cried, rushing to his side. "It's just the flu," he murmured hoarsely. "I'm taking you to the hospital." "No," he said, grabbing her wrist. "I hate needles." Sighing at his stubbornness, she spent the entire night caring for him. She made him tea, placed cool cloths on his forehead, and never left his side. In the quiet of the night, watching him, she finally admitted the truth to herself. She loved him. The next morning, he woke up feeling better, his fingers gently brushing her hair as she dozed in a chair beside him. "You stayed all night," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "Someone had to take care of you," she replied softly. He looked at her, his expression serious. "I love you, Seraphina. I know you feel the same. I saw it last night." This time, there was no reason to deny it. A radiant smile broke across her face. "I love you too, Julian." He pulled her into a tight embrace, relief and happiness washing over him. "Finally," he whispered. A few months later, on a secluded private beach, Julian got down on one knee. "Before I met you," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I only cared about power. You challenged me, you fought me, and you made me a better man. You made me human." He opened a small box, revealing a sparkling diamond ring. "Seraphina Rossi, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her face as she gave the only answer possible. "Yes." Their wedding was held in a beautiful garden by the sea. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promises of love, respect, and a shared future. It was a perfect day, the beginning of a life neither had dared to dream of. Life as a married couple was even better. But soon, Isabella began to feel tired and nauseous. A pregnancy test confirmed her hopes. 2 lines. She was pregnant, but a visit to the doctor revealed an even bigger surprise. That night, She showed Julian the ultrasound. "I'm pregnant," she whispered, her eyes shining. He froze, then a huge grin spread across his face. He took the image from her hand. "We're having twins," he breathed, his eyes wide with joyous disbelief. He pulled her into a hug, laughing. "You just gave me the best news of my life." 9 months later, they welcomed a beautiful baby boy and a girl into the world. Holding his children, with Seraphina by his side, Julian looked at the family they had built. Their journey had started in the ashes of revenge, but from it, they had built an empire of love. Seraphina smiled, her heart overflowing. She had everything she had ever dreamed of: a home, a true partner, and a beautiful family. She would never be alone again.